The story takes place in an ordinary high school, and inside the cafeteria, we find our main character sleeping until his friend arrives with 2 trays. The chubby friend tries to wake the guy up, saying he brought him lunch. He thinks Gavin is exhausted from staying up late talking to a girl. Slowly waking up, our MC wonders where that amazing smell is coming from. Then he realizes the smell is coming from the food right in front of him. Gavin immediately gets excited and lets out a shout. And then he starts staring at the food with his eyes sparkling. Without a second thought, the boy starts scarfing everything down like a wild animal. And his worried friend tells him to eat slower so he doesn't choke. But it was too late, and the MC also devours his friend's food. After filling his belly, he feels relieved and says he's finally back. He can't believe he's actually been reborn, and his buddy asks if he was a hungry ghost, since he ate his portion too. Gavin then confirms that he was indeed reincarnated from a hungry ghost. He was in a freezing apocalypse, and there he ended up starving to his end. The chubby friend doesn't get it at all, and thinks he's acting this way because his girlfriend dumped him. Then the MC puts a hand on his buddy's shoulder, and says he's happy he's still alive because now they can start over. Yaniel is startled by Gavin's words and says, of course he's alive. The MC then asks for the date, and his friend replies that it's August 8th, 2024. Gavin reveals that in half a month the world will enter an ice age with temperatures of -50 degrees. But Yaniel thinks that's ridiculous and offers to help if his friend is in trouble. The MC says he needs help, and his chubby friend tells him he can count on him. At that moment, Gavin asks to borrow $1 billion, and his buddy even spits out his drink. Yaniel, in disbelief at the absurd request, asks if he's serious, and our boy confirms. The MC's friend refuses on the spot, saying that even if he sold his own dad, he couldn't get that kind of cash. Shamelessly, Gavin asks how much he would sell his dad for, and he replies 500 million. But after realizing what he'd said, he gets mad at our boy. Suddenly, a couple appears, and the guy invites the girl to a private room. Our MC then looks at them with a serious face. And the blonde guy says that after dinner they're going to a private movie theater. The chubby friend gets annoyed and points out that's the MC's girlfriend, and she's cheating on him with another guy. With that, the couple walks past the two of them, and the embarrassed girl asks what her boyfriend is doing there. Yaniel defends his friend and throws it in the redhead's face how ungrateful she is. But the girl doesn't even care and says she won't explain anything since it's all so obvious. At this, the MC remembers that in the apocalypse, the blonde guy abandoned her and he took her in. He treated her like a goddess, but the ungrateful woman betrayed him, and his demise was her fault. Yaniel wants to leave, but Gavin calmly says there's no need to rush. The chubby friend doesn't understand and says just looking at her makes him sick. The blonde guy takes the opportunity to mock him, calling him a simp who's always chasing after Xenia. Then the redhead humiliates our MC, saying he was harassing her and that she finds him disgusting. Gavin asks if she's done with her little show. The blonde guy scoffs, asking if Gavin is going to try his simp routine to win the girl back. Yaniel tries to pull his friend away, but he asks for just 5 more minutes. The chubby friend gets desperate and doesn't understand why his friend insists on that girl. Zach finds it amusing and says he'd love to see what he can do in 5 minutes. Without a second thought, the MC slaps him right across the face. The redhead is shocked and worried about her new boyfriend. Everyone in the place has their jaws on the floor. Furious, Zach asks how he dares to hit him. The playboy then lunges at the MC, yelling that he's going to mess him up. But Gavin is faster and lands a kick on him. Yaniel gets all excited by his friend's actions, and the girl runs to help her boyfriend, who is on the ground. She then threatens her ex, saying he's a dead man for touching the heir of the dragon group. Zach then gets up and says he's a taekwondo black belt and refuses to lose to a punk like him. But our MC counters with a hook and calls him trash. Gavin thinks that the apocalypse was a disaster, but it also taught him how to fight. At this, the chubby friend asks since when his buddy got so tough. The traitor gets furious with the MC and yells that he'll regret this. And she even has the audacity to tell Gavin to get on his knees and apologize. Out of patience, Gavin slaps her across the face and asks who she thinks she is. Zach gets up filled with rage and promises he'll crush the MC like an ant. Gavin then lands a knee to his stomach and pulls something from inside the guy's jacket. He shows a spray bottle that he took from his pocket. Zach panics and tells him to give it back. The MC asks how many girls he's already harmed using that spray. Zach plays dumb and tries to grab the object back, but Gavin is faster and sprays it right in his face. The blonde guy starts screaming in pain, and Xenia has no idea what's going on. Desperate, Zach tells the girl to get away from him and stay far away. The spray then starts to take effect, and he goes after the girl completely out of his mind. And then he starts ripping her dress in front of everyone. Xenia desperately tries to cover herself and says they're in public, but Zach continues his attack and the girl begs for help. The MC announces that the 5 minutes are up and the chubby friend is shocked by the scene. Gavin explains that it was a potent aphrodisiac that the rich kid used on his victims. Yaniel worries that Zach will call the police, but the MC tells him him not to worry, because as the heir of the dragon group, he's too proud and will want to get his revenge personally. The chubby friend gets the logic and agrees that Zach will want to handle this secretly. Leaving the cafeteria behind, Yaniel asks what their next destination is, and the MC says they're going to sell the house. And without wasting any time, the two head straight to a real estate agency. The chubby friend says that's the only inheritance from his parents, but Gavin is determined to sell. With 3 million, he needs to stock up on as many supplies as possible for the apocalypse. Yaniel doesn't understand the rush since house prices are on the rise, but the MC ignores him and calls him to their next stop, because now it's time to spend the cash. And their destination is a giant supermarket. Arriving there, he immediately orders 1,000 bags of rice, flour, and oil. And to top it off, he also asks for 10,000 cans of canned food. The employee is shocked by the order and asks if he's sure. Gavin confirms, and the chubby friend asks if he's opening a grocery store. The MC asks if they deliver, and the employee says they'll take care of everything. Then our boy remembers that Yaniel's family owns a warehouse. He asks to borrow the warehouse and says he's still going to buy more stuff. 2 girls from the same class see him and start gossiping about the cheating incident. Ignoring them, Gavin heads to the electronics section and places more orders. He thinks that in the apocalypse, entertainment will be essential for passing the time. The employee is overjoyed and calls him the biggest customer of the year. The girls are shocked by the amount of money spent and wonder how he has so much cash. The MC then continues his shopping and asks them to bag up more coats. The purple-haired girl is suspicious and asks if he's really poor since he's already spent $1 million. They then conclude that he's a rich kid in disguise and decide to go talk to him. The MC thinks he's ready for the apocalypse as the two approach. One of them greets him with a super friendly attitude. They start with some small talk and compliment our MC's looks, faking interest. He remembers that in the past, these two were thugs who mugged him in the cold. The girl then invites him to grab a bite to eat. To their surprise, he accepts and asks Yaniel to take the shopping to the warehouse. The gold diggers celebrate and already plan to take their sugar daddy to an expensive restaurant. The MC then goes with the two, saying he's starving. The trio then arrives at a fancy building. They show him the place and comment on how it's a very expensive luxury restaurant. Once inside, one of them asks what he thinks of the food. Looking at the menu, the MC pretends that he finds everything very expensive. The girls don't care about the price and say they'll order if he doesn't want to. Then the one with glasses orders several expensive dishes like caviar, lobster, and prime steak. An hour later, the purple-haired girl was satisfied with the feast. And then she asks how the food was, and he says he's going to step out for a bit. Gavin then heads straight to the restaurant's reception desk. The hostess informs him that the bill came to $18,000, but he ignores her and asks them to prepare 100 tables with the same dishes for pickup in 10 days. The receptionist is shocked by the massive order and asks if he's sure. Gavin then offers his VIP card and says he can pay for everything in advance. He thinks that he got sick of canned food in the apocalypse and wants to ensure he has good meals. The gold diggers think he's a cheapskate but sensible for going to pay the bill, and they're already planning to ask him for some expensive purses later. The receptionist confirms the order but says there's still the bill for their table. However, he takes his card back and says they can pay their own bill. He thinks that he spent almost all his money and now needs to take out some loans. And without wasting time, he starts looking up some apps on his phone. He then celebrates getting almost $3 million in loans, but he still wants more. Suddenly, his phone rings, and it's one of the gold-digging girls calling. The annoyed girl asks where he went, and the MC says something unexpected came up and he's already heading home, and asks why he should pay the bill. The girl explodes with rage and says he was the one who invited them to eat, but our boy retorts that they were the ones who dragged him there and ordered everything. They become desperate with the ridiculously expensive bill and don't know what to do, but he reminds them that he warned them about the price and they insisted on the most expensive dishes. Furious, the scammer calls him a broke loser and says he's a disgrace. So, to prove he has money, Gavin tells her to ask the hostess about the order for 100 tables, and the receptionist confirms the order. With the confirmation, the girl begs him to come back and pay the bill, but the MC hangs up on her and says he's not going to spoil some idiots. With no money to pay the bill, the two panic, and the receptionist pressures them. The purple-haired one decides to call some guy named Hunter to teach the MC a lesson. After leaving the restaurant, Gavin stops in front of a lottery store. He remembers that in his past life, he won the lottery with 5 numbers. With the ticket in hand, he gets excited, because he just has to wait 2 days for the results. With that, the MC returns to the warehouse where his friend is waiting for him. The chubby friend complains about being abandoned, but his buddy promises to take him out for some fun. Yaniel still doesn't understand the reason for spending so much money on supplies. Gavin explains that all of this will save lives in the apocalypse, and asks him to trust him. The friend says he doesn't believe any of it because it sounds crazy, but the MC assures him that in a few days he'll believe everything. Suddenly, a group of bullies shows up and asks for Gavin Clark. The guy confirms and asks if they're the goons of that Hunter guy. A bald guy with a baseball bat accuses him of messing with the boss's woman. The chubby friend gets scared and threatens to call the police if they try anything. But the thug scoffs and says he'll break their legs before the police arrive. But the MC says with a smile that there's no need to call the police. The bald guy mocks him, calling him a coward and saying it would be useless anyway. The chubby friend tries to protect the guy using his father's name, but the thug says their target is only Gavin and they won't touch the rich kid. Desperate, the friend tells the MC to run while he tries to hold hold the guy's back. One of the goons shoves the chubby friend, and the bald guy attacks with the baseball bat. Daniel screams his friend's name in terror. However, our hero easily dodges and says the attack was too slow. Then he counters with a kick right in the stomach, leaving the bald guy completely wrecked. Then Gavin picks up the bat from the ground and hits him with full force. With the thug on the ground, the MC shoves the bat in his mouth. Seeing that scene, the other goons are shocked by the MC's strength. He then turns to the thugs and challenges all of them to come at him at once. The blonde guy gets annoyed and orders his men to attack the MC. Our boy then defeats all the goons by himself. The chubby friend's jaw drops, unable to believe that this is the same Gavin. With all the enemies on the ground, the MC asks if they've had enough, but Gavin demands 100,000 from each of them as compensation, and the thug says that's extortion. Gavin then hits him with the baseball bat, and then threatens to break everyone's legs if they don't pay up quickly. With that, he gets 600,000 from the thugs. He thinks that he's not a cruel person, but the apocalypse changed his mindset. Then he says he's going to take his friend to the exciting place he promised, and they arrive at a club full of dancing women. The pervert seems to have really enjoyed it and thanks the MC for calming his nerves. Gavin goes to the bar and says he's looking for the boss to make a delivery. They are then led down a hallway full of security guards. The friend gets scared and asks what kind of excitement this is, and what they are doing in this strange place. The security guards start saluting their boss and call him Mr. Lowe. The boss then asks what the boys are doing there. With a smile, the MC introduces himself and says he heard the old man was receiving some goods. Then Mr. Lowe finds it strange that they're empty-handed and asks where the products are. Gavin points to himself and says that the goods are them, leaving the old man interested. But the conversation ends, and the boss orders his armed goons to capture the duo. With guns pointed at them, the chubby friend panics and tries to use his dad's name to get out of there, and desperately asks what this delivery is, and Gavin reveals that the guy traffics human organs. Upon hearing this, the chubby friend completely freaks out and yells that there's no way not to panic at this news. The MC then challenges the boss and asks if he's afraid to close the deal. With that, he makes his offer of 10 million for all the organs in his body, but the old man only offers 5 million, saying the market is down at the moment. The MC accepts on the condition that he receives the cash first and delivers the body in 3 days. Satisfied, the boss orders a goon to bring the contracts for the two to sign, but they only bring one contract, and Gavin points to his friend and the chubby guy yells that he's not selling anything. But the MC insists that his friend is indeed selling, making him even more desperate. One of the goons then forces the chubby guy to sign the contract at gunpoint. Once outside, the outraged friend asks if the MC is even human for selling him out. He tries to calm his friend down, and the chubby guy remembers that Mr. Lowe is a dangerous gang boss. Gavin gets serious and says that in 3 days, the trafficking boss will meet his end. The friend doesn't believe it, but the MC invites him to watch the apocalypse arrive. They go to a mansion, and the MC says he wants to rent the property. The real estate agent confirms if it's just that one mansion, and he says yes. The friend doesn't understand why they're renting a mansion now, but Gavin says there's something good there. He remembers that it was in that mansion where he met his end in his past life. Determined, he declares that his new life will begin in the same place where the old one ended. The agent informs him that the owner doesn't want to rent, but the guy offers double the price. Even with an offer of 5 times the rent, the woman says it's not a matter of money. Without giving up, the MC offers 10 times the price in payment in advance. The agent changes her mind on the spot and promises to convince the owner no matter what. The MC says his only condition is that he can renovate the entire house. In the hallway, they see the guy's ex-girlfriend with her mother, who is encouraging her to win over Zach. The friend wonders what Xenia is doing there, and Gavin reveals that Zach has a mansion nearby. The redhead notices her ex's presence and gives him a look of disgust. She accuses him of stalking and says they haven't settled the score from last time. The girl's mother butts in and humiliates the MC, calling him poor and having no future. The chubby friend defends his buddy, and the woman freaks out, threatening to get him expelled from school. Gavin scoffs at the over-the-top reaction and asks what she has to do with his rental. The ex-girlfriend doubts he has money for the rent, which costs at least 20,000. The agent returns and informs them that the rent is 25,000 a month. The girl's mother is shocked to learn that the poor guy actually rented the mansion. The redhead thinks he did all this to be close to her and tells him to give up. The MC and his friend can't believe the girl's level of delusion. Her mother says 25,000 is nothing and drags him away. The agent reminds him that the first month's rent will be 250,000, and he agrees to pay on the spot. The mother and daughter are in shock at his offer, and the redhead thinks it's all an act. The MC shows the transfer confirmation of 250,000 on his phone. The agent hands over the keys to the mansion and says he can renovate it as he wishes. The girl's mother wonders if she misjudged the guy and if he's also from a rich family. The MC asks his friend if he knows the head of the biggest renovation company in the city. He asks his friend to set up a meeting, and the chubby guy doesn't understand the plan to renovate a rented house. Gavin tells him to stop asking questions and set up the meeting, saying he'll understand everything by nightfall. The friend manages to schedule the meeting using his father's influence, and the MC thanks him. He promises to send a truckload of instant noodles as a thank you, and the friend complains. The guy assures him that his father will love the gift and will even praise him for it. They arrive at the renovation company, and the receptionist asks them to wait for the boss. Coincidentally, the ex-girlfriend and her mother are also there for a renovation paid for by Zach. The redhead asks if the two have an appointment and notices they're there. She once again accuses the MC of stalking and tells him to keep dreaming if he thinks he'll win her over. The guy is fed up with running into the two and wonders why they keep bumping into these idiots. The chubby friend tries to explain that Gavin is also there for a renovation, but the redhead scoffs at him. The MC introduces himself to the receptionist and says he has an appointment. The mother and daughter doubt he's really there for a renovation and think he's just showing off. The company boss arrives and asks who he has a meeting with. The receptionist points to the MC's group, but the two gold diggers butt in. The girl's mother is overjoyed and thinks Zach's influence made the boss come in person. She takes the opportunity to humiliate the MC, saying her daughter is being received by the boss while he waits. The redhead confidently goes to greet Mr. Zhao, introducing herself. The boss is confused and asks if she scheduled an appointment with him. The girl gets worked up and says yes, but the man doesn't seem to recognize her. He asks if her name is Gavin Clark, and she replies that her name is Xenia. Mr. Zhao pushes her aside and tells her not to get in the way if she's not Gavin. The MC introduces himself, and the company boss recognizes him instantly. Surprised that he's so young, the boss invites him to talk in private. The girl's mother is completely confused, and the redhead thinks it's all because of the rich friend's family. They enter the manager's office to discuss the details of the renovation. Mr. Zhao asks what the young friend Gavin wants to renovate. The MC says he wants to renovate a mansion. The boss explains that a mansion renovation is a small job and passes it on to a director. But Gavin insists that Mr. Zhao handle the project personally. The man says he's busy and only takes on large projects personally. The guy claims that his is a large project, and the boss asks what the budget is. The MC then says the budget is at least 30 million. Mr. Zhao is shocked by the amount and can barely believe what he heard. He asks if the guy is sure it's 30 million and not 3. The MC confirms the amount, and a director enters the room, excited to help with the project, but the boss dismisses him and says he'll handle the project personally. Zhao asks what Gavin wants to do with so much money, as with that amount he could buy a new mansion. The MC hands him a roll of paper and says that the project's blueprints are in there. Upon seeing the drawings, Mr. Zhao is startled and asks if he's building a bunker. Gavin says the budget might increase and that the only requirement is to finish in half a month. The boss says the project is complex and looks like a war bunker for the apocalypse. Gavin admits it's for the apocalypse and offers 20 million in advance. Mr. Zhao accepts the challenge and promises to mobilize all resources to finish on time. The chubby friend is shocked at the 35 million expenditure and calls him crazy. The MC says money will be worthless soon, and the friend asks where the cash came from. He reveals that he took out 10 million in loans, and the friend hopes the apocalypse story is real. The ex-girlfriend reappears and asks mockingly how much he spent to get attention. The guy gets annoyed and says it's none of her business and that he's not trying to get anyone's attention. The girl's mother brags that her daughter spent 1 million and says that's real power. The chubby friend joins the conversation and reveals that Gavin spent 35 million. The redhead and her mother burst out laughing and think it's a ridiculous joke. The MC challenges them, asking if they would call him daddy if it were true. The ex-girlfriend says he sold his house for 3 million and calls him a simp. The girl's mother joins the bet and says she'll call him daddy if he really spent that much cash. An employee runs after the MC saying he forgot his contract. Seizing the opportunity, the girl's mother grabs the paper to expose his lie. But upon looking at the amount on the contract, her expression changes, and she's in shock. The redhead then scoffs and asks if the amount is so small it left her speechless. With a pale face, the mother stammers and confirms that the amount is 35 million. Desperate, the woman accuses the guy of forging the contract just to show off. But the employee defends the document, saying it was signed by the boss and is legal. The MC then calls in the bet and tells her to call him daddy, and the old woman refuses to honor the bet. Out of patience, Gavin slaps her across the face. The chubby friend cheers on the action, and the MC tells him it's time to leave. Xenia, furious with the humiliation, threatens her ex, saying he'll pay dearly for this. Later, the two friends arrive at the mansion the MC rented for the apocalypse. Completely confused, the chubby friend asks why they came back and what his plan is. The MC then reveals that he's finally going to prove that the apocalypse is real. The chubby friend thinks his buddy is acting strange and is sure he's finally lost his mind. Outside, Yaniel complains about the cold and says they've been waiting for 2 hours and nothing has happened. But the MC looks at his phone and says it's almost time. Suddenly, a shooting star streaks across the sky, and Gavin says it has finally arrived. Yaniel doesn't understand anything and asks if it's just a regular shooting star. Gavin explains that the real apocalypse only comes in half a month, but there are signs like the cold and the stars. The chubby friend panics and says the shooting star is coming right at them. The MC thinks that those stars grant abilities, and that's why his neighborhood became a base in the past. He remembers that this star fell on the mansion and was found by a thief in his past life. Desperate, Yaniel yells for them to run because the star is going to hit them head on. But the MC braces himself and says that this opportunity is his. His buddy tries to stop him and asks if he's gone crazy and wants to meet his end like that. Ignoring the warning, Gavin opens his arms and is engulfed by the star's light. The chubby friend is terrified and thinks his buddy got crushed and that it's all over. But Gavin reemerges with an aura of power and says his physical attributes have increased 5-fold. He then turns to his friend and asks if he believes believes him now. Surprised, Yaniel stammers and asks if his friend didn't kick the bucket. The MC replies that not only is he alive, but he also gained an ability and is stronger. The chubby friend isn't convinced and says he doesn't see a difference and asks how he's stronger. To prove his point, Gavin places a hand on his shoulder, and with just one hand, he easily lifts the chubby friend who weighs over 220 pounds. The MC then asks once more with a smile if his buddy believes him now. Yaniel panics and can't believe he was lifted so easily with one arm. Gavin then takes him to the edge of the roof, leaving the chubby friend terrified. With a scary look, the guy tells his friend to get ready to go down. Then he simply jumps off the 33-foot-high roof with his friend in tow. The two land without a single scratch. The chubby friend opens his eyes and is surprised to see that he survived. Gavin asks again, and the friend gives in and says he believes everything after that jump. Meanwhile, in the mansion next door, the redhead's mother asks what her daughter is looking at through the window. The girl says she saw the star fall and complains that it would have been better if it had hit her exile. The redhead tells her mom that Zach will get revenge on the MC as soon as he gets back. At that moment, the mansion's doorbell rings. The mother answers the door, all happy, and the blonde guy asks where his girlfriend is. The girl then appears all excited and waves to her boyfriend. The preppy guy grabs her and says he's missed her these past few days. The mother feels awkward, and the blonde guy gets annoyed with her, telling the lady to get out of there. The redhead takes the opportunity to share the news and reveals that Gavin has moved into the neighborhood. Zach explodes with rage and asks how he dares to show his face in front of him. The mother adds more fuel to the fire, saying the guy did it to be close to her daughter. Furious, the blonde guy grabs his phone and promises he'll make the MC regret it. He then calls someone named Biao, introducing himself as Zach. The scene cuts to a boxing club, and in the ring, one of the boxers was talking to the playboy. Zach offers $200,000 for the fighter to take care of someone for him. Biao accepts on the spot and says the job will be done in 2 hours. In the ring, the fighter says he has a job to do and needs to end the fight quickly. The opponent gets annoyed with his arrogance and calls him a cocky rookie who's asking for a beating. But the boxer is faster and knocks out the champion with a single precise punch to the chin. The crowd goes wild with the victory and hails the fighter as the new king of boxing. Back at the mansion, the MC explains what the initial stages of the Ice Age will be like. The chubby friend laments humanity's fate, and Gavin asks what he's going to do. Totally convinced, Yaniel stands up and says he'll do whatever his friend says without question. The MC then jokes and tells him to go back home and sell his own father as he suggested. The buddy feels awkward and says his father would never believe a story about an apocalypse. Gavin explains that soon money will be worthless and only supplies will truly matter. With that, the chubby friend makes up his mind and says he'll bankrupt the family even if his father punishes him for it. Suddenly, the MC senses someone approaching the house. He then tells his friend to be quiet, and the chubby guy asks nervously what's happening. Gavin reveals that the mansion is surrounded. In front of the house, the fighter Biao and his goons prepare to break down the door and invade. One of the goons was ready to hit the door with a giant sledgehammer, but just as he was about to strike, the MC kicks the door open with force and knocks the unlucky guy out. Gavin and his friend appear and ask who these guys are. Biko is surprised and asks if he's a fighter for having noticed their presence. The MC then recognizes him instantly and calls him by his full name, Duen Hu Biao. The boxer is surprised and asks how he knows him. Gavin remembers that in the apocalypse, the fighter became a powerful ability user. Biao reveals that Zach sent him and that he's going to break some of his bones. The MC then tells the goon to leave so he doesn't get hurt. Biao gets annoyed by the audacity and lunges at the MC, but Gavin easily dodges and says the blow was too slow. Surprised by his reflexes, the boxer tries another strike, but the MC takes advantage of the opening and lands a punch to his stomach. The other goons are shocked to see their boss get knocked out. The fighter recovers from the blow and says something is wrong, while the MC asks if he gives up. But the boxer refuses to surrender and says no one in the world can make him submit. Out of patience, our hero lands a kick to his chin. With Biao on the ground, Gavin asks if he's had enough. Even defeated, the boxer insists he won't surrender and can't believe he lost. The MC finds this interesting and offers a way to save his sister in exchange for a favor. Biao is shocked to hear this and asks how he knows about his sister's illness. Gavin reveals he knows about the terminal illness and that he fights to pay for her treatment. With renewed hope, Biao asks if he can really save his sister. Gavin says he's the only one who can save her and that it's up to him whether to believe it or not. Biao surrenders on the spot and says he believes him because he defeated him in combat and asks what mission he must complete. The mission is to go after Zach, give him a beating, and get as much cash as he can from him. Biao remains silent, without complaining. Then he calls his goons to follow him on the mission. The goon asks if the boss really believes the guy, and Biao says he's his only hope. In the other mansion, Zach thinks Gavin is already in the hospital and that it's time to have some fun. With that, he and Xenia enjoy a private moment in the bedroom. But suddenly, a loud noise interrupts the mood. The girl's mother gets annoyed with the interruption and goes to see who's knocking at the door. Upon opening the door, the lady comes face to face with Biao and his men and asks who they are. Out of patience, the boxer shoves the woman aside and enters the house with his goons. The lady gets furious and yells at the intruders, asking if they have any manners. Biao, out of patience, just slaps the woman across the face. The The couple comes downstairs, and Zach asks Bo if the job has been successfully completed. He then offers a card with the $200,000 payment for the dirty work, but instead of accepting, the boxer lands a hard punch to the rich kid's gut. Zach is shocked and asks why the hired goon is attacking him. Bimbo points at Zach and orders his men to go at him without mercy. They then start kicking the rich kid, who is down on the floor. Desperate, the playboy tries to threaten the fighter with the power of his wealthy family. With that, Biao raises his hand and tells his men to stop hitting him. Thinking his threat worked, Zach gloats and says the boxer made a mistake. Biao then reveals that his new boss ordered him to be hung up and to continue the beating. Zach gets desperate with the crazy order and calls the boxer insane. While being dragged away, the rich kid wonders who this so-called boss is and if it could be Gavin. Hung up, the playboy reveals that his transfer limit is 10 million. Biao then demands that he transfer the 10 million immediately. At the mansion, the MC's buddy shows him a message he received on his phone. He tells him about a class training session, but the MC refuses the invitation on the spot. But he changes his mind when he learns the location is near North New City. He then confirms he'll go, and his cell phone starts ringing at that very moment. It was Bo on the phone, letting him know he got the 10 million from Zach. Then the scene changes to the lottery store. The MC remembers the ticket and says he needs to check the results to buy more supplies. But upon checking the ticket, the MC is shocked because he didn't win the lottery. He thinks about the butterfly effect but finds it impossible since nothing else in the world has changed. With that, he realizes he needs to find another way to get cash for supplies. The next day, the students gather for the college's practical training. Suddenly, the two gold diggers appear, and one of them asks how he dares to show his face there. And Gavin asks why he wouldn't dare to show his face. The one with glasses demands an explanation and says they had to work for a month to pay off the bill. Unconcerned, Gavin asks what he has to do with their problem. The girl then tries to seduce him and says they'll do anything if he pays off their debt. The purple-haired one joins in and offers a night with them in exchange for 20,000. But the MC turns the tables and asks the two gold diggers to lend him 40,000. The two get furious at the proposal. At this, Yaniel appears, and the MC asks why his eyes are swollen. The buddy reveals it was from crying so much to convince his father about the apocalypse. The MC gets excited about his friend's tactic and asks if his plan worked. But the friend says the plan didn't work because his father ignored him for hours and then gave him a beating. Gavin then comforts him and tells him not to get discouraged, as even he took a while to believe in the apocalypse. Suddenly, a professor appears and tells all the students to get on the bus for the training. Inside the bus, the MC sits next to his friend. The chubby friend then says he's thirsty and asks for water, but Gavin says he didn't bring a bottle. Suddenly, the girl sitting next to our MC offers him her bottle. Our boy thanks her and immediately hands the water to Yaniel. The girl then comforts Gavin about the breakup with his ex and hopes he gets over it soon. The MC says he's not sad and that he's actually happy to have seen her true colors. She says she heard that Xenia was a gold digger and offers him money, but Gavin refuses because he knows the girl's family doesn't have much. Seeing that scene, the chubby friend realizes there's a spark between them, but the MC tells him to shut up. After a while, the bus finally arrives. The counselor then tells everyone to get off to announce their internship positions. He explains that the internships are divided into 3 floors, and the first is the worst. He starts announcing the names of the students who will be on the 3rd floor. The two gold diggers celebrate getting the best spot, just as Hunter had promised, and one of them asks how they will fulfill their promise to him. They then look at the girl who had helped our MC on the bus, and the purple-haired one says Kui is perfect because she's from the countryside, has no connections, and on top of that, she's a virgin. The counselor then continues the roll call and announces the names of the students for the 2nd floor. Yaniel is frustrated because their names weren't called even for the 2nd group. With that, the professor announces that the remaining 3 will go to the 1st floor, the worst of all. Kui is disappointed and laments that they won't learn anything useful in that place. The other students mock them and wonder why Yaniel ended up in the same boat as the 2 broke guys. The MC then confronts the counselor and asks what the criteria for that decision were. And the man says it was a fair decision by the school and that he shouldn't complain about anything. Gavin then accuses him of lying to his face and calls him shameless. The professor gets angry and threatens to expel him from the school. He tries to justify himself by saying it was fair to put a rich kid and a poor kid in the same place. The chubby friend gets furious and reveals in front of everyone that the professor tried to extort his father. Upon being exposed, the counselor gets angry and calls him insolent. Yaniel then shows his phone and says he has a recording of the blackmail to prove it. Suddenly, a guy appears and says they've crossed the line, and accuses them of having no respect for the professor. The 2 gold diggers also butt in and defend the corrupt professor, saying the trio is ungrateful and that people like them didn't even deserve an internship. The MC gets annoyed with the guy and tells him to shut up. The bully then calls him a simp and says he went crazy after Xenia dumped him and asks how he dares to talk to him like that. Without a second thought, the MC lands a punch right in his face. The guy gets furious and yells that he hit him first and lunges at him. But Gavin blocks the blow with ease. The bully is shocked by his strength and doesn't understand how he got so strong. Then Gavin slaps him twice across the face and reminds him that he told him to leave. Completely scared, the bully tells the professor that Gavin has gone crazy. The MC then lands another punch on the guy and asks if he didn't hear him. The counselor appears, furious, and tells the MC to stop and apologize. But the guy turns and slaps the corrupt professor across the face without mercy. The chubby friend celebrates and says it was very satisfying to see that. The other students are shocked and can't believe he hit the professor. The counselor threatens him, saying he's expelled from the internship program. But Gavin lands a hook on him and says he doesn't care. With the two guys on the ground, the MC calls his friend to leave the place. At this, the chubby friend gets worried and asks what will happen to Kui. The MC then turns and invites the girl to go with them, making the girl feel awkward. The two gold diggers butt in and say they'll take care of her, but the professor only wants to expel Gavin. They try to convince Kui to go with them, saying the MC will ruin her future. But the girl says goodbye to him and tells the MC to be careful. With that, the guy tells his buddy that now it's time to take care of business. They arrive at a giant logistics park, and the friend explains that it's the largest in the province. Yanyul then asks if the plan is to get supplies from that place, and he thinks it's impossible because they wouldn't even be able to get into the place. The MC then sees a hiring sign and calls his friend to check it out. He then approaches and asks the recruiter if they're hiring. The man replies condescendingly that they are only hiring women at the moment. The chubby friend gets desperate and asks what they're going to do now. The MC has an idea and tells his friend to go get Kuryo to help them. Meanwhile, in the internship office, the group was working hard. The one with glasses then tells her friend that Hunter called because Mr. Jang needs a girl right now. With a malicious smile, they decide that Kui is the perfect girl for the job. The two then approach their colleague's desk and ask how she's doing. The happy girl thanks them and says she's learned things she would never see in school. The shrew replies that it was nothing, and that's what colleagues do. The purple-haired one then asks if she's ever had a boyfriend, and she says no. The one with glasses gets excited and offers to set their colleague up with a boyfriend. She refuses because she just wants to work, but the two insist that a rich boyfriend would bring in more cash. Without giving her a chance to refuse, the two drag her off to meet the guy. And then they arrive at a very chic commercial building. Koyuka tries to run, but the two say they've already arrived and that the man is a good person. They then enter a room and introduce her to a gentleman named Jiang, who was waiting for them. The old man, with a disgusting smile, says the girl looks very pure. The purple-haired one pushes Kui forward and introduces her to her new boyfriend. Satisfied, the old man pays the two girls 30,000 for their help. The gold diggers say their goodbyes and tell him to enjoy himself while the girl begs not to be left behind. But they ignore her and slam the door in her face, leaving the girl trapped in the room. The creepy old man then approaches and offers more money if she serves him well. The girl backs away and threatens him, saying she'll call the police if he doesn't let her go. But Jiang says all the security guards are his friends and won't help. Cornered, Kui begs him to let her go because she just wanted to work in peace. The creepy old man then slaps her hand and knocks the phone to the floor. He says it's impossible to escape because no woman has ever left that room unharmed. Lying on the floor, her phone starts to ring, and it was a call from the MC. Back at the logistics park, our hero feels his phone vibrate in his pocket. He then takes out the device and sees that it's Kui calling him. He answers the call and asks what happened. But on the other end, the creepy old man steps on the phone and shatters the device into pieces. Then he tells the girl to accept her fate because he's going to make her very successful. Kui refuses and grabs a potted plant, saying she'd rather meet her end than surrender. On the other side of the city, the MC finds it strange that the call drops suddenly. He then realizes something bad has happened to Kui and decides to rush back there. Meanwhile, the girl defends herself and throws the pot in the creepy old man's direction. The man gets furious with the attack and says she doesn't know what's good for her. Then he slaps the girl across the face and knocks her to the ground. At the building, the two friends are stopped by a security guard who asks what they're doing there. The chubby friend tries to use his influence, but the guard doesn't seem to recognize him. Out of patience, the MC shoves the security guard and tells him to get out of the way. Gavin then says that Kui is on the 3rd floor and they're heading straight there. The guard tries to stop them and says Mr. Jiang cannot be disturbed right now. But the MC turns around and says he's Mr. Jiang's father, so he doesn't need to wait. The security guard then asks how he can be the boss's father when he's so young. With that, the guard finally realizes that something is very wrong. He then panics and starts yelling for backup to stop the intruders. The MC finally reaches the 3rd floor. As he exits the elevator, Gavin comes face to face with the two gold diggers. They are shocked and ask what he's doing in that place. But the MC, with a serious face, asks where Kui is. The purple-haired one says he's not an intern and has no right to ask. Gavin then repeats the question with a menacing tone. What does mighty became about the top participation menacing tone? What may just be crevive? He owes mafsi. The girl tries to stand her ground and says this is no place for him to make a scene. Out of patience, our hero slaps the girl across the face and knocks her to the ground. The one with glasses is outraged and can't believe he dared to hit her friend. Then he slaps the other gold digger, who also falls to the ground. With both of them on the floor, he asks for the third time where their colleague is. Scared, they point to a door and say that Kui is in Mr. Jiang's office. The purple-haired one tries to warn him that the boss is well connected, but our MC doesn't care. He then kicks the door with all his might to open it. Inside the room, the girl screams for help while the creepy old man tells the MC to get lost. Gavin tells the creepy old man to let the girl go immediately. Irritated, Jiang asks if the guy knows who he's talking to. Unintimidated, the MC grabs the old man's finger and starts to twist it, making Jiang scream in pain. Desperate, the man starts screaming and calling for the building's security guards. Gavin gets annoyed and lands a kick right in the scumbag's face. He then goes to Kui and asks if she's okay, and the girl says he arrived just in time. At that moment, the security guards finally arrive and ask who's causing trouble. The old man gets up and orders his goons to finish off the two intruders. The two gold diggers celebrate and think the MC deserves a beating. Suddenly, one of the security guards flies through the air and hits the two girls squarely. In seconds, all the guards were down on the floor, and the girls are shocked. The creepy boss is terrified on the floor and asks what else the guy wants from him. Gavin then says he'll make sure he never thinks about women again, and then he lands a blow right in the old man's private parts. With Jiang completely finished, the MC moves to another location and turns to the two gold diggers with a terrifying look. Scared, the two try to protect themselves and say he can't hit women. The MC ignores their plea and slaps the one with glasses across the face. Then he slaps the purple-haired one and warns that he only didn't cripple them because they are still useful. He then calls his friends to leave the building, leaving them completely wrecked on the floor. The gold digger tries to help the boss and says she'll call the police, but the creepy old man slaps her and tells her to take him to the hospital. Then he grabs his phone and calls someone for help to put an end to the boy. Outside, Kui thanks the MC for his help. He says it was nothing and asks what her plans are for the future. Kui laments that she lost her internship and now doesn't know how she'll get a job. The MC then offers to find a job for the girl. She gets excited about the proposal and asks if he can really get her a job. With that, the trio returns to the logistics park where it all began. The girl is surprised and asks if he really wants her to work there, and the MC confirms. She then comments that the position is for a warehouse manager and she has a degree in finance. But Gavin encourages her, saying that all work is valuable and that she can shine anywhere. The recruiter gets annoyed and asks if they're going to take the job because it's almost closing time. With that, Gavin encourages her to apply and she agrees to take the job. The MC then says goodbye and tells them he'll visit her in a few days to see how she's doing. Yaniel comments that only a fool like her would accept a security job when she's in finance. But the MC says it was precisely because of her foolishness that she got the opportunity. After leaving the logistics park, Gavin says it's time to go home. Suddenly, a gun is pointed at our MC's head, and they're told not to move. It was Mr. Lowe's goons, and the two friends raise their hands in surrender. The thug warns that the 3 days are up and that now their bodies belong to the boss. Yaniel asks if they're really going with the guys, as he could easily defeat them. But Gavin says to go with them because the real show is about to begin. They then arrive at an abandoned warehouse, and one of the goons tells the two to get out of the van. The terrified chubby friend points out that they're in an abandoned factory in the suburbs. One of the goons gets annoyed with the delay and tells the two to hurry up and get inside. But the MC turns around quickly, and with a swift move, he disarms the guy and takes the gun for himself. Then he doesn't think twice and fires a shot right into the middle of the goon's head, taking him out instantly. Seeing this, all the goons go on alert, but he is faster and takes them all down with precise shots. The chubby friend's jaw drops and he praises him, saying he's an elite marksman. The MC then hands a magazine of bullets to Yaniel to defend himself if needed. He remembers that in the apocalypse, he had no powers, so he trained his aim to survive. Yaniel holds the gun awkwardly and tells Gavin he doesn't know how to use it. The MC then asks if his friend plays shooting games, and Yaniel proudly replies that he's a pro. With that, Gavin suggests he pretend he's playing one of those games right now to feel more confident. The scene then cuts to the inside of the warehouse where a truck is parked and several people are unloading goods. Upon seeing the truck, Yaniel recognizes the Ziwei Biotech logo, questioning why one of the world's top 3 biocorporations would be there. At this, the MC reveals that in his past life, Ziwei Biotech was hailed as the savior of humanity, but he now suspects they aren't as simple as they seem. Suddenly, 2 guards in military uniforms notice the duo's presence and shout, asking who's there. But our boy is faster and fires his gun, hitting both guards. Then he approaches one of the bodies and takes an ID card, confirming that they were indeed Ziwei Biotech employees. Inside the warehouse, a blonde woman talks to Mr. Lowe, saying it was a pleasure doing business and that Ziwei Biotech is very pleased with the fresh parts he provided. Mr. Lowe replies that the honor is his, and mentions that 2 more fresh and living parts will arrive soon to complete the set of 6. At that moment, he turns and is surprised to see Gavin and Yaniel approaching. With that, he introduces them to the woman as the last 2 parts of the batch, ironically asking if she's satisfied with them being alive and kicking. The woman from Ziwei Biotech then becomes intrigued and asks Mr. Lowe why the parts are carrying guns. Mr. Lowe is surprised to realize they are armed, but before he could say anything, Gavin shoots him without hesitation. The shot hits Mr. Lowe square in the knee, and he falls, screaming in pain, ordering his men to capture him immediately. The MC then opens fire on the goons, taking them all down. Noticing the scene, the woman is impressed by Gavin's precise aim, while the injured boss yells for everyone to get them. Then our boy tells Yaniel to stay hidden, and says he'll take care of the remaining enemies while continuing to fire at the goons. Furious, Mr. Lowe yells that in all these years, no one has dared to cause trouble on his turf, and orders his men to crush them since they no longer want their organs. The MC continues to eliminate the goons with insane precision. The remaining guards and the Z-Way woman are shocked by his speed and start shooting while yelling to stop him. But all the goons are defeated and fall right at the woman's feet. With all the enemies on the ground, Gavin and his friend approach the two survivors and the woman asks what they want. Then the MC points the gun at them and retorts that he should be the one asking what they want there. Mr. Lowe gets annoyed with the audacity and questions if a punk like him is qualified to know their plans. In response, our hero fires again, hitting the trafficking boss's shoulder. He then stares at him coldly and tells him to repeat what he said, because now he's listening. On his knees and holding his wounded arm, Mr. Lowe tries to maintain his composure and warns that he doesn't scare easily, saying the boy has no idea who he's messing with. The MC then turns to Yaniel and orders him to take out the boss, leaving the chubby friend completely shocked by the request. With a cold, serious look, Gavin repeats the order and insists that he do as he was told. At this, Mr. Lowe seizes the opportunity, grabs a fallen gun from the floor and says they can go to heck. But Yaniel is faster and, with his eyes closed, fires his weapon at the trafficking boss. In his final moments, Mr. Lowe is completely stunned as he feels the bullet pierce his forehead. Seeing the boss's body on the ground, the chubby friend panics and realizes he just took a person's life. Gavin then turns to the Z-Way woman, saying Lowe was trash and that his knowledge doesn't compare to hers, and the surprised woman asks how he knows her name and who he is. Our boy replies that she doesn't need to know who he is, but if she insists, she can call him daddy. Hearing the taunt, the woman gets furious and yells at him not to be so insolent. Unfazed, the MC simply shoots her in the leg and she falls to the ground screaming in pain from the impact. The Z-Way biotech executive tries to threaten him, asking if he's thought about the consequences of attacking her. But the MC ignores her and shoots her other leg without hesitation. Then, he approaches and says he's not interested in her useless threats. Desperate, the woman begs him not to shoot and reveals that they use the human organs provided by Lowe for human experiments. Hearing this, our boy asks what kind of experiments they are conducting. She then explains that they are researching human evolution and bioweapons, offering to take him there if he spares her life. With that, Gavin has a flashback of the Mantis god of war and realizes the creature was created with these experiments, which began even before the apocalypse. The woman is shocked and asks how he could know about such a secret project. At this, Yaniel opens one of the boxes and screams in horror that it's full of human organs. Seeing the situation, the executive tries to recruit the MC, offering unimaginable wealth and power if he joins Z-Way Biotech. But the MC refuses the offer on the spot and says he's not interested. In despair, the woman begs not to be taken out and promises she can still be useful. He then questions how she could help him. At this, she tries to seduce him and says she's very good with her mouth. But apparently it didn't work, because Gavin puts a bullet in the woman's head. Then he scoffs, saying she couldn't even stop a bullet with her mouth. Afterward, Gavin searches her body and finds a VIP access card to the Z-Way Biotech headquarters. The scene cuts to another location and Mr. Jiang was furious that something had happened at Z-Way Biotech and questions who would be so bold. He says that as an investor, he has the right to know what's happening and that they can't hide it from him. Hunter then appears to meet with him. With a vengeful look, the creepy old man orders Hunter to take care of a guy named Gavin. He confirms that he already has a personal problem with the MC and promises to deliver one of his hands in a few days. Back at the mansion, Mr. Zhao reports that the main structure has been reinforced to a level that not even a tank could break through. Then he details that the internal renovation, including ventilation and underground water, will be ready in a week, and the MC thanks him for the hard work. At this, a woman approaches and introduces herself as Aunt Lu from the residence committee to welcome the new neighbor, and Gavin introduces himself politely. Soon after, she invites him to join the neighborhood chat group for easier communication. Upon accepting, the woman notices several cardboard boxes from the construction and asks if she can come in to get them, since he probably doesn't need them anymore. Our boy then agrees that he doesn't need the boxes, but explains that it's not convenient for her to enter the house at the moment. But Aunt Liu insists and says she'll get a cart, forcing Gavin to be firmer and ask her not to delay the construction progress. The woman calls him stingy, but Gavin tries to be diplomatic and offers to bring the boxes to her house in a week. But Aunt Liu refuses and demands the boxes now, afraid that someone else will sell them before she can. Out of patience, the MC loses his cool and yells at the woman to just get lost. Shocked by his reaction, the woman confronts him and asks why he, a punk, is cursing at people. With that, our boy threatens her directly, telling her to get lost or he'll give her a good thrashing. As she leaves, the woman complains about the lack of respect from young people and threatens him, saying he'll get what he deserves sooner or later. The scene then cuts to Zach, who offers $500,000 to a group of goons led by a man called One-Eyed Dragon. The One-Eyed Dragon says the young master is very kind and that as employees of the vast dragon group, it's their duty to serve. But Zack insists it's a personal matter and that his only demand is that they make Gavin Clark disappear from the world, leaving no evidence. With an evil smile, the One-Eyed Dragon introduces himself as a professional hitman and guarantees that the MC will vanish without a trace that very night. While watching the assassins leave the room, he gives a serious look and says that Gavin has no idea of the power behind him and that he could end him with a snap of his fingers. The scene then changes to a luxury hotel at night, and the One-Eyed Dragon's boss asks if he's sure about this. And the goon confirms that Gavin is staying in the presidential suite of that hotel. The assassin's boss then orders everyone to stay alert for any movement and not let the boy escape. Meanwhile, inside the suite, our MC relaxes on the sofa and thinks that everything has been going according to plan since he was reborn. He reflects that in 3 days, the most important stage of the plan will begin, and its success will define everything. Suddenly, Gavin notices a noise coming from outside the room. And on the other side of the door, the One-Eyed Dragon slowly approaches the suite with a gun in hand. Noticing the movement, the MC concludes that it must be the goons sent by Zack and decides to play along with their game. On the other side of the door, our boy hears the invasion plan but realizes there's more than one group of enemies approaching the location. At this, Hunter's gang arrives and one of the goons underestimates the target, but Hunter warns him not to be careless, as Gavin has already defeated and robbed another group before. Then one of Hunter's men shows a tranquilizer gun, assuring the boss that this time they are well prepared for the mission. With that, Hunter gives the final order to his men and tells them to beat Gavin to a pulp and then cut off one of his ears to send as proof to Mr. Jang. Inside the suite, the MC smiles and says the day is getting lively and decides to have a little fun, then turns off the room's lights. Seeing the lights go out, the One-Eyed Dragon assumes the target is asleep and orders his men to storm the room immediately. On the other side, Hunter's gang also sees the lights go out and with the same assumption advances into the suite. The two groups of assassins then enter the dark room from opposite sides, unaware of each other's presence. Soon after, the One-Eyed Dragon notices movement in the darkness and signals his men to stop, warning that there's someone ahead. The assassin then points his gun at Hunter's silhouette and orders him to stay right where he is, mistaking him for his target. Hunter then retorts and says that he's the one who shouldn't move an inch. With that, the One-Eyed Dragon gets annoyed by the audacity and asks how the punk dares to be so arrogant with him. Hunter yells back, questioning if the other guy got the script wrong, since he was supposed to be the one saying that. The One-Eyed Dragon then calls him a talker and assures him that he won't leave there alive today. Furious with the arrogance, Hunter complains that the kid acts as if he's also there to kill and orders his men to eliminate him. On the other side, the One-Eyed Dragon also loses his patience and yells for his goons to take out the target. Then the two groups of assassins start shooting at each other in the darkness, each believing they are fighting the target and his backup. One of the One-Eyed Dragon's goons warns the boss that the kid has backup and tells everyone to grab their weapons. At the same time, one of Hunter's men screams in desperation that the target has a lot of backup and orders everyone to open fire. From a safe spot, the MC watches the chaos with a smile and thinks about letting the fools play their little games. After the intense shootout, the One-Eyed Dragon leans on the light switch, accidentally turning it on, and celebrates finally taking down all the enemies. With the lights on, Hunter, also wounded on the floor, recognizes the assassin and asks what the One-Eyed Dragon is doing there. The One-Eyed Dragon then recognizes Hunter Walsh and asks what he's doing there and where the punk Gavin is, to which Hunter yells that he was about to ask the same thing, as he's also there to take out the boy. At this, the two gang leaders realize they've been tricked and the One-Eyed Dragon screams in rage, concluding that Gavin probably escaped a long time ago. 3 days later, Yanyul approaches the MC to give him some news, and Gavin asks what happened. The chubby friend then reveals that Counselor Chi Changdong used his connections to get him expelled from school, but Gavin just laughs and says a diploma will be useless in the apocalypse. Yanyul insists that he can't stand the smug look on the counselor's face, who is currently bragging in the class chat group. The confident MC says he has a way to deal with him. Then we see the class chat, where Counselor Chi Changdong announces the expulsion of Gavin Clark for disruption and assault, with the bully Wang Da celebrating and the counselor himself mocking Gavin publicly. Reading the taunting messages in the group, our boy makes a serious face and sends a picture of a middle finger and calls Counselor Chi Changdong an idiot in the class group. With that, the professor gets furious at the audacity and calls him an unemployed bum, threatening him to just wait. Then Gavin sends a message to all members, formally reporting Chi Changdong for having a long-term affair with Principal Lee's wife and indicating the meeting places and surveillance footage as proof. Reading the message, Yanyul is shocked by the explosive news and asks his friend how he knew all that. The MC then reveals with a smile that, in his past life, he and the counselor were trapped together in the school during the apocalypse, and Chi Changdong himself confessed everything when human morality collapsed. Desperate, the counselor orders in the chat for the admin to dissolve the group immediately and threatens anyone who dares to leak the messages. Seeing his panic, Yaniel laughs and decides to post the chat logs on the school forum right away. Soon after, our boy says it's time to go, as they have important business to attend to, leaving the chubby friend curious. At this, the MC asks if Yaniel's father still doesn't believe him, and the friend confirms, saying he's one step away from being committed to a psychiatric hospital. Gavin then assures him that after they handle their business, he will go with Yaniel to see his father, and then he will finally believe everything. The scene then cuts to later, and Yaniel asks what kind of major event could happen there. The MC then announces that they've arrived at the location. Then they stop in front of a house that Yaniel observes is considered to be from a wealthy family by the neighborhood standards. Suddenly, a voice from inside the house complains angrily that the booze is gone again. Inside the house was a drunk man sitting in a room full of empty bottles, with a young girl trapped in a cage in the corner. The man then casts a furious look in the direction of the caged girl, but the girl glares back at him. At this, the man gets annoyed by her glare, throws the empty bottle at the cage, and threatens her, saying he'll gouge her eyes out if she continues. He then calls her a brat who's nothing but a liability and complains that he's already spent all the dowry her mother brought, deciding that he's going to sell her family's house, and reveals with a malicious smile that before selling the house, he'll sell her first, as she's worth at least enough for a few drinks. With that, the man opens the cage, grabs the girl's hair forcefully, and yells for her to get out. He then reveals that he beat her mother to her end for refusing to buy him drinks, and threatens her with the same fate if she dares to disobey him. The girl then bites his hand. Furious at her reaction, he raises his hand to strike her and yells that today she will join her mother. But before he can attack, the front door is kicked open. At the entrance of the house, the MC and his friend Yaniel appear with a serious expression, ready for action. The man then stands up, still holding the girl, and asks who they are, to which Gavin replies with the question, "What do you think?" In a flashback, the MC reveals that this man is Feng Qi, a despicable thug who gained the hyperspace ability and became a national hero by transporting supplies for the government at the start of the apocalypse. However, he also remembers that Feng Qi betrayed everyone by running off with a massive load of supplies, which resulted in the deaths of 1 million people from hunger and cold. Finally, the flashback shows that Feng Qi did not have a good end, as he ended up perishing in the claws of an ice demon, causing all the supplies he stole to disappear forever. Back in the present, the MC is surprised to see the girl and thinks that he never heard of her in his past life. With that, Feng Qi mistakes them for human traffickers and offers to sell the girl for an extra $100, commenting that a little later he would have beaten her to her end. Hearing this, Yaniel explodes with rage and calls him a beast, leaving Feng Qi confused by the insult. Then the chubby friend repeats the accusation and says he's worse than a pig or a dog. Feng Qi gets annoyed by the hypocrisy and calls Yaniel a human trafficker who thinks he's all high and mighty. But the MC's friend denies the accusation and says he's not a despicable person like him. Then Feng Qi threatens him with a bottle and says he's going to crack his skull for causing trouble. Before he could attack, Yaniel fires his gun and hits Feng Qi right in the leg. With that, Gavin praises his friend and says his aim is getting better every day. On the floor and holding his wounded leg, Feng Qi asks angrily who the heck they are. Yaniel then warns that he won't let a scumbag like Feng Qi get away with it. Suddenly, the girl takes advantage of the distraction and hits Feng Qi's head with the broken bottle. Seeing the scene, both the MC and his friend are completely shocked by the girl's action. With his head bleeding, Feng Qi gets enraged and calls the girl a wench, in disbelief that she dared to attack him. Without giving him time to react, the girl attacks him again. On the floor and completely injured, Feng Qi threatens her and says he's going to skin her alive for daring to hit him. With a look of pure fury, the girl raises the broken bottle with both hands, ready to deliver the final blow. She then starts beating him relentlessly, and while Yaniel tries to intervene, the MC stops him and tells him to leave the girl alone. The MC then realizes that this is the result of overwhelming hatred, and that if they stop her from venting now, her life will be ruined. With that, the girl continues the brutal attack until the broken bottle is completely covered in blood. With Feng Qi's body on the floor, the girl stands beside him, trembling with rage. Seeing the scene, Yaniel is shocked and yells that he's gone, but the MC coldly states that someone like him deserved to meet his end. Then Gavin warns that it's almost time and tells his friend to take the girl to clean up and calm down. While he goes up to the roof, on top of the building, the MC observes a meteor shower crossing the night sky, with one of them being much larger and brighter than the others. With that, he smiles and thinks that the greatest opportunity he could have before the apocalypse has finally arrived. Then, our boy opens his arms and is completely enveloped in a golden light that descends from the heavens, absorbing the meteor's power. Soon after, he celebrates with a triumphant smile, yelling that he finally got what he was waiting for. With the new ability, he finds himself floating in a gigantic hyperspace, the size of dozens of football fields, and realizes that now he can stock as many supplies as he wants. Back to reality on the roof, he suddenly hears a buzzing sound coming from the street below and looks back. Looking down, the MC is surprised to see a police car parked in front of the building. Outside, a handcuffed bald man points to the house and tells the police that's the place where Feng Qi was going to sell him a girl. With that, the lead officer gives the order for all units to prepare and raid the location. Meanwhile, inside the house, the girl is already clean and in new clothes. Yanyil comments that now that she's clean, the little sister is actually very cute. Then the MC warns that the authorities are outside, and the chubby friend panics, remembering that the body and the weapons are still with them. But our boy calms him down and says that while before their only option was to run, now the story is different. With a subtle gesture, he uses his new hyperspace ability and makes Fengkui's body disappear right in front of Yanyil, who is shocked by the scene. Soon after, the police kick the door down and yell for everyone to freeze. The lead officer then points his gun at them and asks who Feng Qi is, and the bald man says that none of them is Feng Qi. The officer then turns to the two guys and asks what they are doing in that place. The MC then introduces himself as Gavin and lies, saying he's a distant cousin of the girl and just came to check on her. Then Yanyil also introduces himself and says he's just a classmate who came along with his friend. The officer then kneels to talk to the little girl and in a gentle tone asks what her name is, and the girl replies that her name is Zishi. At this, the officer points to our hero and asks Sixi if she really knows him. The girl then confirms the MC's story and says that he is her cousin, because her mother had told her about him. Satisfied with the answer, the officer says goodbye and tells them to contact him immediately if they have any leads on Fengkui. Seeing the police leave, Yanyil sighs in relief and says they finally got out of that one, suggesting they leave right away. But as he turns to leave, the girl Zixi stops him. With that, Yanyil realizes they almost forgot about Sixi and wonders what will happen to her now that Fengkui is gone. Then the MC turns to the girl and asks if she wants to go with them. Sixi then nods her head and agrees to go with them. Yanyil insists that they take her, and Gavin agrees, but warns that he doesn't support freeloaders. Then he tests her and asks if she knows how to make instant noodles. With an excited smile, the girl confirms that she knows how. The MC then agrees, and they leave together. As they walk down the street, Yanyil says he's hungry and suggests they eat hot pot, asking Jishi if she can handle spicy food. The scene then cuts to 3 days before the apocalypse, with Gavin and Yanyil walking towards a luxurious mansion, and the chubby friend confesses that he's still a bit scared. But our boy reassures him, saying there's nothing to fear and that they need to convince his father today, one way or another. Inside the mansion, Yanyil's father is reading the newspaper and yells at the two punks to stop talking nonsense and leave. Yanyil then tries to convince his father, saying that everything Gavin said is true and that the ice apocalypse will arrive in 3 days. But the man gets annoyed and tells them to get out at once so they don't bother him while he's having his tea. At this, the MC uses his hyperspace ability and makes his teacup disappear from the table. Noticing it's gone, Yanyil's father is completely confused and wonders where his tea went. Gavin reveals that he was the one who took it and that this is the superpower he was talking about. The chubby guy's father, however, is not convinced and accuses him of doing magic tricks to try to fool him. Then Gavin uses his ability again and makes the sofa disappear, making Yanyil's father fall to the floor. Soon after, Gavin approaches him and asks if he finally believes his story now. Yanyil's father refuses to believe it and accuses them of trying to trick him, stating that they are too naive to pull one over on him. Then our MC activates his hyperspace ability again, making the chubby guy's father fall to the floor. But the man is still not convinced and challenges him, saying he'll only believe it if the MC can make everything in the room disappear. Without hesitation, Gavin uses his ability again and makes all the furniture in the room vanish in an instant, leaving the place completely empty. The chubby guy's father is in disbelief as the MC asks with a smile if he finally believes now. Suddenly, the man turns and slaps his own son hard across the face. Completely confused, the chubby friend holds his face and asks his father why he hit him like that. The father then explains that he did it to make sure he wasn't dreaming, and finally says that now he believes everything. The scene then cuts to another location, and there are only 2 days left until the ice apocalypse. Vermes leaves a transfer notification for 760 million. With that, Yanyil appears all excited and says that his father finally transferred the money as agreed. Then, the MC tells them to split up and sends his friend to focus on buying cold weather gear and other supplies for the apocalypse, while he goes to inspect the mansion and try to buy some weapons. Then the scene cuts to the newly renovated mansion, which now looks like a true impenetrable fortress. Soon after, Mr. Zhao appears and informs him that the entire construction and renovation of the mansion have been completed exactly according to the MC's specifications, and asks if he is satisfied. With a smile on his face, our boy replies that he is very satisfied and praises the renovation company's boss for having thought of everything. Mr. Zhao then explains that this was the most difficult renovation project his company has ever done and that he personally supervised the entire process, ensuring that with enough supplies, one could live there until they passed on. At this, the MC shakes his hand and promises to transfer the final payment as soon as possible, while Mr. Zhao says his goodbyes and prepares to leave. But as the company boss was leaving, Gavin calls him one more time to give him a final warning. The MC advises him not to leave his house for the next 2 days and to stock up on as much food and supplies as he can. Mr. Zhao is curious about the warning and asks if a typhoon is coming, and Gavin confirms that it's a super typhoon that only happens once every century. With that, the renovation company's boss agrees to listen to him, saying that since he's been exhausted lately, it will be a good chance to rest for a few days. Soon after, several huge trucks arrive and park in front of the MC's mansion, bringing a massive amount of supplies. At this, the chubby friend appears in one of the trucks and announces that he's back with the supplies, assuring him that he bought the best and most expensive things he could find. Then Gavin tells him to bring everything inside the mansion so he can store all the items in his hyperspace. Outside, a woman and her grandson watch the scene, and she wonders why they bought so many things, questioning if they're going to open a supermarket at home. Seeing one of the boxes, her grandson points to a picture of candy and asks his grandmother for a lollipop. The grandmother then agrees and picks him up so he can grab a lollipop from the top of the supply box. Suddenly, Yaniel approaches the MC with a worried look and says he's run into a problem, leaving Gavin curious. And then the chubby friend desperately complains that the problem is not being able to spend all the money, as he hasn't even spent 100 million of the total. With that, the MC gives his friend a new mission and says he'll give him the addresses of some large granaries for him to go and buy all the grain he can find there. In a flashback, Gavin remembers that in his past life, the grain from those granaries was stolen by a group of villains, and he is determined to cut off their evil path this time. Suddenly, one of the delivery guys approaches and informs him that there's a final batch of crossbows they couldn't move because an elderly lady won't let them pass. Arriving at the location, they find Aunt Liu trying to open one of the boxes with a box cutter, while her impatient grandson yells for her to hurry up as he wants to eat what's inside now. At this, the MC appears behind her with a serious expression and asks what she's doing. The woman then turns and with a fake smile says that since he bought so many things, her grandson wants a lollipop and asks if he minds. But our boy glares at her with a cold look and replies directly that yes, he minds. Aunt Liu then gets annoyed and calls him stingy, saying that taking a lollipop will serve as an apology for what happened last time, and still demands that he leave all the boxes for her to take. Out of patience, Gavin tells her to just get lost and leave. Furious, the woman gets worked up and says that as the vice director of the neighborhood committee, she can take things from anyone's house and accuses him of ruining the neighborhood's harmony. Suddenly, her grandson climbs onto one of the boxes and celebrates having gotten the lollipop. With that, Gavin loses his patience completely and yells at the woman to get her grandson off the box immediately. But the spoiled brat refuses to get down, calls him a villain, and threatens to destroy him in the name of the monsters. Then, our hero rolls up his sleeves and yells at the brat to get down from there right now. But the old woman stops him and tells the MC to stay far away from her and her grandson. However, while jumping on the box, its lid gives way, and he ends up falling inside. Unfortunately for him, that box was full of crossbow bolts, and several of them end up sticking in his backside. Feeling the pain of the bolts, the boy starts screaming desperately that it hurts a lot. The grandmother then runs to pick him up, while the grandson continues to cry and complain about the pain in his backside. Watching the scene with a satisfied smile, the MC simply says that they had it coming. Furious, Aunt Liu threatens the MC, saying he hurt her grandson and will have to compensate her, vowing to come back to settle the score. With that, she leaves with her grandson while the MC watches the scene, and in the distance, his ex-girlfriend Xenia and a friend observe everything from a balcony. The redhead then questions what Gavin is doing buying so many supplies. At this, Xenia's best friend, Yang Ziking, comments that he's crazy for stocking up on so much stuff in the heat and wonders if he's not afraid of it all spoiling. The ex-girlfriend then tells them not to worry because Zach will take care of him, and then invites her friend to go to the beauty salon. The scene cuts to the logistics park, and it was one day before the apocalypse. There, the chubby friend celebrates that all the money was spent on buying 5 entire granaries, an amount of food that would last forever. Soon after, the MC tells his friend that after meeting with Kutli, the first thing they'll do is collect all the grain. Upon finding the girl, she greets Gavin all happy, and he asks how her work at the logistics park has been for the past few days. Kwee then replies that the work is great and that she was even promoted to warehouse supervisor, but asks how much longer she needs to stay there. The MC informs her that she can leave tomorrow, and the girl gets super excited about the news, saying she'll quit immediately. But the MC stops her and says she doesn't need to quit because he needs her to do one last thing for him. With that, he reveals that he needs her help to get the warehouse keys because he's going to the logistics park that very night. Hearing that, the girl is shocked by the request and asks what he's thinking of doing by going there in the middle of the night. The guy then says he'll tell her everything later and asks her to wait for him inside the warehouse, leaving the girl even more confused. He tells her to remember to wait for him and not to tell anyone about the plan. Kwee becomes thoughtful and starts to suspect the MC's true intentions. Later, at one of the granaries, a man informs Gavin and his friend that all the food they bought is already there for inspection. Inside the huge warehouse, our boy dismisses the site manager and says his people will take care of everything from there. Soon after the man leaves, Yaniel celebrates excitedly and says that now that they're alone, it's time to start. Then the MC activates his hyperspace ability and prepares to collect and store all the supplies from the granary. Inside his hyperspace, the chubby friend is amazed and says it's incredible how all that food disappeared in an instant. The MC then explains that any item that enters the hyperspace will remain in the exact same state, With that, Yaniel asks if that means the flow of time in the hyperspace is zero, and Gavin admits he's not sure and will need to research it later. Suddenly, the site manager returns to the granary and says he came back to get something he had forgotten. But upon entering the warehouse, he is completely shocked by what he finds inside. He can't believe what he's seeing and wonders if he's hallucinating, as a mountain of food simply vanished in a moment. After emptying the granaries, our boy goes to the logistics park and knocks on the door of the warehouse where Koikoi is waiting for him. The girl then opens the door and is surprised to see him, greeting him a bit awkwardly. He then warns her that what she's about to see might be shocking, but that she can't make a sound, and the girl agrees. Then he asks if she's ready and announces that he's going to start. Koikoi apparently misunderstood everything and closes her eyes, completely embarrassed. Noticing that she was distracted, the MC calls her and tells her to stop daydreaming and follow him. With that, Koikoi snaps out of it and runs to keep up with Gavin. They then stop in front of the gigantic warehouse shelves, which are completely packed with supplies. He then extends his hand and thinks that, after collecting this batch, the amount of resources he has accumulated will reach an astronomical figure. And then, everything simply vanishes from there. Seeing the shelves magically emptying, Koikoi panics and screams, asking what the heck is happening. With the warehouse completely empty, the girl turns to Gavin and asks how the goods disappeared, and if he was the one who did it. The MC says he'll explain everything later, but first they need to go collect the goods from the other warehouses. The scene then cuts to the surveillance room of the logistics park. Inside the surveillance room, Koikoi is confused and asks the MC what they are doing in that place. With that, Gavin uses his ability and with a single gesture disables all the security cameras in the logistics park at once. Soon after, he says he'll explain everything when they get back and calls her to finally leave the place. The scene then cuts to the MC's mansion, showing the refuge already prepared for the night before the apocalypse. In the living room, little Sixi serves a cup of tea to Kiwi, who thanks the little girl for her kindness. Then the guy asks if Koikoi believes the story about the apocalypse he told her, and she confirms that she believes him. Hearing that, Yanil comments with a smile that she really has unconditional trust in Gavin. Then our boy announces to the group that the apocalypse begins tomorrow, and that from that moment on, no one is allowed to leave the house. But Koikoi says she needs to go out to take care of one last thing, and the MC allows it, on the condition that she returns before noon tomorrow. The scene then changes to a large building, as the countdown to the ice apocalypse finally reaches 0 days. In Zach's office, the one-eyed dragon explains that they encountered another group sent to take out Gavin and ended up in a friendly fire incident, promising it won't happen again. With that, Zach gets annoyed and says his patience has run out with so many failures. Then the playboy decides to handle the matter personally and grabs a gun, calling his goons to go with him. The scene then cuts to Koikoi, who is on a street feeding several stray cats and dogs as her last task before the apocalypse. She says goodbye to the animals and warns that the apocalypse is coming and she won't be able to feed them anymore, asking them to learn to take care of themselves. Soon after, the girl says goodbye to them and says she hopes she can see them all again someday. At the same time, Zach and the one-eyed dragon watch her from a distance, with the goon reporting that Gavin has been staying in the mansion and it's been difficult to act. At this, the one-eyed dragon suggests that the girl must be his girlfriend, and that they can kidnap her to force the MC to show up. Back at the mansion, Yanil answers a call and completely panics at the news he receives. He then runs to the MC and warns that the scumbag Zach has captured Koikoi and is demanding that he go there alone to rescue her. Hearing the news, the MC gets furious and says that Zach is courting his own doom and that it seems he won't live to see the apocalypse. The scene then cuts to an abandoned factory. With that, Gavin arrives at the location and Zach taunts him, calling him an idiot for daring to show up there alone. But the MC tells him to cut the crap and demands that he release Kiri first. Then Zach orders his goons to release the girl, who is pushed towards Gavin. Upon being released, Kiwi runs desperately towards Gavin to protect herself. However, the playboy calls him naive and shoots the girl. Seeing the shot coming towards her, Koikoi completely panics, but Gavin is faster and pulls her close to him, managing to dodge the bullet by a hair's breadth. Seeing the scene, Zach can't believe they managed to dodge the shot. With the girl in his arms, Gavin asks if she's okay, and Kiwi warns that the enemies have guns and tells him to run. But our boy reassures her with a smile and tells her not to be afraid because he'll take care of the rest. Then he turns to Zach and says he intended to let him live a few more days, but now he's going to finish him off sooner than expected. Furious, the playboy orders his men to torture him for a while and not let him meet his end so easily. With that, one of the goons advances, promising Zach that he'll take care of the MC. However, Gavin knocks him out, throwing him against the wall, and asks if he came there to meet his end. Seeing the scene, the other goons are shocked by his strength, not understanding what happened. Soon after, the one-eyed dragon sends more men to attack, and 2 of them charge at him with full force. Gavin then dodges with ease, and with a swift move, he grabs the enemy's arm and neutralizes the knife with his bare hands. And then, he turns the knife against the goon and stabs him in the leg. Soon after, our hero turns and stabs the other 2 goons in the legs with the knife, taking them down while they scream in pain. Seeing the scene, Koikoi is completely shocked and can't believe that Gavin is so strong. With that, Zach panics and doesn't understand how the MC has these skills, but the one-eyed dragon calms him down and reminds him that they still have guns. Then the one-eyed dragon points the gun at the MC and challenges him, saying that if he's so tough, he should try to dodge that bullet. But before he could shoot, the goon is hit by a shot to the chest and is completely stunned. With a victorious smile, Gavin reveals that he also has a gun and that he was faster on the draw. Seeing the one-eyed dragon's body on the floor, Zack panics and can't believe what happened. Quickly is horrified to realize that the MC just took a person's life right in front of her. Completely terrified, Zack turns and starts to run to escape from that place as fast as possible. But the MC fires his gun and hits the playboy in the leg, preventing him from escaping. With him on the ground, Gavin approaches and ironically asks if he really thinks he can get away. Desperate, Zack tries to use his influence and yells that he's the heir of the dragon group and that Gavin can't touch him. But our boy ignores the threat and shoots his other leg without hesitation. With that, he replies coldly that he just touched him, showing that he's not afraid at all. Realizing he's lost, Zack admits defeat and tells the MC to name his price. Then Gavin demands the absurd amount of 1 trillion. The playboy is completely shocked when he hears that impossible demand. Soon after, he gets angry and accuses the MC of joking, as no one could pay 1 trillion. At this, Gavin calls him poor for not being able to pay and kicks him in the face to teach him a lesson. Completely defeated, the playboy starts to beg for mercy and asks the MC to stop hitting him. But Gavin ignores him and continues the beating while yelling that he warned him he would finish off that coward today. Suddenly, a police car arrives at the scene, and one of the officers yells for everyone to freeze and not move. The MC then grabs Zack by the collar and asks if he was the one who called the police, and the playboy confirms with a smug smile that he called them as a plan B. Then the rich kid brags that now Gavin can't take him out and that he'll still spend the rest of his life in prison for public assault. Out of patience, Gavin simply shoots the playboy's private parts. The preppy guy then starts to scream in pain and cries that the MC crushed his jewels and ruined his happiness. At that moment, the police approach and tell the MC to stop and drop the weapon, but he explains that he's not going to take Zack out because that would be too easy. Soon after, he turns to the police and assures them that he won't be caught no matter what. With the police ordering his arrest, Gavin raises his hands in a sign of surrender, and then he starts a countdown and finishes by saying that time's up. At this, one of the officers pointing a gun at him is completely shocked to realize it was snowing. And then, all the officers look up and are dumbfounded to see the snow falling, wondering how that's possible. One of them then questions what's happening and why it's snowing in the middle of summer. The scene then shows the sunny sky being overtaken by a sudden snowstorm as the weather begins to change drastically. With that, the police officers start to shiver violently and yell that it's freezing because the temperature is dropping rapidly. At the same time, one of the injured goons panics and asks for help, realizing that his wounds are freezing due to the extreme cold. Zack also starts to freeze on the ground and begs for help, saying he's going to freeze to his end, but the MC watches him with a victorious look.